turn it over to Linda.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Hi, and today we're going to be talking about building relationships that help youth thrive. The webinar will be about a half hour long. I'm going to try to keep it to that, but we've got a lot of information to cover, so we're going to get going right away. Oops. There we go. So just a word about our organization in case you're not real familiar with us. Our vision at GLCYD is for all youth in the UP to thrive. We work toward that by strengthening nonprofits so they can lead community progress, which helps grow a strong culture of support for young people. A robust nonprofit sector is very important to the social fabric of a community and an environment where youth and families can thrive. So we provide workshops, training, and information for organizations that work with young people and for all nonprofits as well. This year, we are celebrating 20 years of using the framework of 40 developmental assets that you might have heard of. This is to help communities provide what kids need to thrive. We first surveyed 8th, 10th, and 12th graders in Marquette and Elger counties back in 1997 with a survey called the Profiles of Student Life, Attitudes, and Behaviors from Search Institute, which measures the level of 40 developmental assets in kids. Since then, several communities around the UP have used the survey as a baseline to see how their young people were doing and to build developmental assets, which are strengths, competencies, skills, and experiences that really promote thriving behaviors among youth and protect against risky behaviors. And in its work on developmental assets, Search Institute, which is the organization that started the assets and that we have worked very closely with over that 20 years. Search Institute has done research with over 5 million youth. And out of that work on the asset framework, they developed a framework for what they call developmental relationships. And this has been very recent that they've been doing this research and work on the developmental relationships. So this is all very new information. And they've done focus groups with young people, parents, educators, youth workers, and other people, and have also drawn on a wide range of already existing research and extensive analysis of existing data. And they've gotten input from scholars and practitioners. And this quote from Peter Benson, the founder of Search Institute, in the asset framework really sums up what they have found. So I'll just read that. After decades of forming hypotheses, conducting surveys, crafting and rewriting definitions, analyzing data, and writing journals, Search Institute researchers and practitioners have arrived at a surprisingly simple conclusion. Nothing has more impact in the life of a child than positive relationships. It really is all about relationships. So that's what we're talking about today. So developmental relationships are those relationships that help young people discover who they are, develop abilities to shape their own lives, and to learn how to engage with and contribute to the world around them. So they're really close connections that help young people discover who they are, and again, develop abilities to shape their own lives, and they are transformational in children's lives. So Search Institute set out to determine what it is exactly that makes up these transformational relationships. So that's what they've been working on recently, and that's trying to understand and document really the day-to-day actions within relationships that contribute to a young person's learning, growing, and thriving. And they've put what they found into a framework that organizations and individuals can use to infuse these transformational relationships into their work with youth. Through their research, Search identified 5 elements that make up these developmental relationships, and they are express care, challenge growth, provide support, share power, and expand possibilities. So we'll look at each of these 5 elements individually, along with some actions that go along with them. And I have to say, this isn't rocket science, although there is a great deal of research and science behind it, but it's pretty simple. So what we're talking about, you've all done to some extent with what we're going to be talking about is what you've all done to some extent with relationships of all sorts in your life. But the key is doing these things intentionally, and really making them a conscious and regular part of how your organizations and or how you as an individual interact with the young people in your life. So let's look at each element. First, we have express care. We need to show youth that they matter to us, and we can do that by being dependable, being someone they can trust, listening. I'm really paying attention when you're together, and that means, you know, putting the phone away and being in the moment with them. Believing in them, making them feel known and valued, being warm, showing them you enjoy being with them, and encouraging them, praising them for their efforts and achievements. And to me, this all sounds a lot like being a friend. You know, these are things that friends do. And, you know, you've probably heard and maybe said it yourself, adults like parents or a teacher saying, my job isn't to be their friend, it's to be their teacher, or it's, you know, or it's to be their parent. And there's no doubt some wisdom there, but I would add a little something to that and say, it's not only my job to be their friend, it's my job to be their parent too. And these transformational developmental relationships really do start with those same elements of friendship, but there is a lot more added in. And the next 4 elements are what's added into that. Number 2, challenging growth, pushing young people to keep getting better. We need to expect their best, expect them to live up to their potential. There's nothing wrong with having high expectations as long as they are, you know, realistic expectations. Stretching them, pushing them to go further, holding them accountable, insisting that they take responsibility for their own actions, and then reflecting on failures, helping them learn from their mistakes and setbacks. And I think this is a really important one, letting them know that mistakes are a necessary part of learning, that we all have to take some chances that we're going to make a mistake. Because if we don't, we won't learn. And I think especially for already high achieving kids, that can be a real challenge, that letting go of that idea of that, you know, I need to do this perfectly. Help them to know that they can make mistakes, and that's okay. Providing support, helping them complete tasks and achieving goals. We need to help them navigate through hard situations and systems. And I would add that it's always best to show rather than tell, and that, you know, speaks to modeling the behavior that that you're hoping that they will gain. Empowering them, building their confidence to take charge of their life, advocating, defending them when they need it, and setting boundaries, putting limits in place and helping to keep them on track. Sharing power, treating them with respect and giving them a say. I think that this is probably the hardest of the 5 elements for us adults. At least I think it is for me. You know, it's hard sometimes to give away power or control, and it can be kind of a scary thing to do. But it really is very necessary for young people to grow. So we want to respect them, take them seriously, treat them fairly, include them, involve them in decisions that affect them. Collaborating, working with them, not necessarily for them, but with them to solve problems and reach goals, and letting them lead, creating opportunities for them to take action and lead. I think service projects are a great way to do that, letting them lead. And we that work in organizations with young people, I think, can really make an impact in that particular action. A way to share power could be to let them make decisions about activities that you do together and what you talk about. You know, whether you are one-on-one in a parent-child relationship or in an organization. Just don't be too quick to jump in when they don't make a decision as fast as you might, or if they don't offer something to talk about right away. Just kind of pause and give them the time they need. And then the fifth, expanding possibilities, connecting with them, or connecting them with people and places that broaden their horizons. Inspire them to see possibilities for their future. Expose them to new ideas, experiences, and places, and introduce them to more people who can help them grow. I think this is a big one too. Kids are often hesitant to introduce themselves to adults. I mean, it can be intimidating. So when we can help them meet people and even model how to introduce yourself to people, it can be very empowering to young people. So you may be thinking at this point, well, how can I do this? Like build this sort of relationship with every kid I work with? I would say a more realistic goal would, you know, rather than every adult having a deep, sustained relationship with every young people, that it's more about ensuring that every young person is provided with a web of positive relationships. So SEARCH has studied 3 different relationship configurations: parent and youth, teacher and student, and program leaders and youth. And what they found first around the parent-youth configuration is that where there were these strong developmental relationships, the youth showed higher levels of self-awareness, emotional competence, openness to challenge, and personal responsibility. They were more motivated to learn, to try things, to master new skills, and improve academically. They had more academic control, meaning that they were believing they were responsible for their own grades and success in school. And they were more apt to see helping others as their personal responsibility. SEARCH did a survey with 700 middle school students, and they found that the ones with high level developmental assets with teachers were 8 times more likely to stick with challenging tasks, to enjoy working hard, and to know it's okay to make mistakes while they were learning. And they also recently did a study of 900 participants in an immersive summer program around environmentalism. And they found that the youth who had developmental relationships with their adult leaders were more likely to exhibit leadership and a sense of community identity and social responsibility. So these relationships really make a difference. Going back to the parent and youth relationships, there's research out there that shows that families with strong parent-child developmental relationships are 21 times more likely to manage their emotions well. They're 17 times more likely to take personal responsibility for their actions, 5 times more likely to be good at making and keeping plans, and 4 times more likely to have a sense of purpose in life. So they really do make a difference. Each relationship can be an important source of strength, but young people do even better when they have, like I mentioned before, a strong web of many developmental relationships. So that finding really reinforces the importance of nurturing many developmental relationships in young people's lives, each of which complements and reinforces the others. Oops, I've been neglecting my slide turning here. I'm sorry about that. So what can you do in your organizations to help ensure that your organization is building and supporting developmental relationships? Well, Search did a series of interviews with 55 leaders in schools and youth development earlier this year, and through those discussions emerged 3 sort of preconditions that need to happen in order for organizations to have these sorts of relationships really infused into the organization. First, relationships need to be part of the mission. The organization needs to build relationships through rather than apart from its primary curriculum or program. Search used the examples of schools that use an advisory period as a special time to build relationships, and also like out of school time programs that have maybe a special session that's devoted to building relationships. So these kind of set apart sessions are very valuable, but it's when those relationships were built in these sessions, when they are carried into the day-to-day classes or programs, that kids are really motivated to invest in the curriculum or the program, and they're more likely to persist even when things are difficult. So, you know, it's not a bad thing to have a special time devoted to building relationships, but it can't end at the end of that session. You know, you need to take it in and keep it going on an everyday basis in order to really get the full effect of the developmental relationships. And then the second precondition that they found through their interviews are that adults need to be eager to create these relationships. People typically go into working with young people because they like them and they want to make a difference in their lives, but that's not always the case. There are those adults that struggle to connect with kids, but they can become better when their organization expects them to and provides support. So if you're looking to activate relationships in your organization, it's best to start with a nucleus of those folks that are willing and eager to build relationships. Makes sense. And number 3, that third precondition is that there's adequate time. And finding time is often a challenge in organizations, but it is necessary. And when you make time up front to build these relationships, in the end, you'll end up spending less time on things like discipline issues and remediation. So how does your organization invest in relationships? Well, you can use questions around these areas to really reflect on that, on how your organization can invest or strengthen your investment in developmental relationships. So experience, ask yourself, how consistently do young people experience developmental relationships in your organization? Are there some groups of youth more likely than others to experience them? Around expectations, you could ask, how clearly articulated are relationship actions that are essential to your mission, strategy, and culture? Around time, you could ask, is regular time dedicated to building relationships with and among youth, and what happens during that time? Ask yourself, how are abilities to nurture strong relationships factored into staff and volunteer hiring and development? Around budgeting, how might your budget more really explicitly reflect your commitment to reinforcing relationships? Around training, how often do staff meetings or professional development focus on practical ways to cultivate relationships? And feedback, how do you collect and use data, feedback, or other information that can help monitor and strengthen intentional relationship building? So, think about what might happen if you were to increase your investment in these areas. How might young people, staff, parents, and other stakeholders respond? So we're at that point where we can take some questions if you have any. Karen, does it look like we have any questions?
I'm not seeing anything in the box right now, so
okay,
go ahead and fire away if you'd like to ask a question.
Well, in the meantime, here are some sources and resources that you might want to look at to learn more about the research that Search Institute is doing on developmental relationships. I would say go to searchinstitute.org. There are 2 very good documents that they have put together that talk more in depth about their research on developmental relationships. And there is also a very nice 1-page document that outlines the framework in a very easy to see, easy to digest way. So those 5 elements that we talked about and the actions that go with them are on this nice little illustrated framework chart. Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any questions yet. Well, thank you very much for being here today. If any questions come up, please feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email at any time. Karen, do you have a few parting words here?
No, I just wanted to confirm that, again, I'm not seeing any questions here, but please feel free to reach out to Linda if you have any questions, and Just wanted to thank everybody for joining us today.
All right. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.